What's up, guys? What's going on? Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. I just can't even believe it. We get to do this all over again. It just seems like we were just doing this. What's up to everybody in the chats? What's up, Josh Jordan? What's going on, brother?
What's going on, buddy? Another win. I think maybe, are we the lucky charm here? Should that be the thing we're thinking about?
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not ready to say all that
Yordan
yet. Not ready to say that yet. Man, welcome in, everybody. We're going to give everybody just a few minutes to get in here. We've got a few people in the broadcast already. We really do appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Obviously, big win in Houston. Astros take we're so spoiled. Yet another 2-0 lead in a best-of-5 ALDS. My goodness. I said my goodness like 80 times in our last broadcast, so I promised myself I would tone it down a little bit. Orlando, what's up? Caden, what's up? Sam, what's up? Hey, welcome into the chat, guys. No sponsors. I'm just going to get right into it. Let's break down the game for everybody to catch everybody up on what happens. This was the only game on the schedule today because the Yankees-Guardians was postponed due to weather. If you had a place to be, this was the pitching matchup for you because Framber Valdez and Luis Castillo were two guys that were working quick, and if you blinked, you missed an inning. Top of the first, Framber takes the mound with his 17-6 regular season record, 2.82 ERA, 1-2-3 14 pitch inning. He strikes out Ty France looking. Bottom of the first, Luis Castillo with his 2.99 ERA takes the mound. He goes 1-2-3 Ks. Jeremy Pena swinging. Top of the second, Framber Valdez gets him 1-2-3 Ks. Santana, Carlos Santana swinging. It was smooth for Fromber,
So
not Carlos Santana that time. Bottom of the second, Kyle Tucker puts him on the board, takes Castillo yard for a 370-foot moonshot on a slider. It's 1-0 Astros after the second. Top of the third, Frazier strikes out swinging. Good morning, good afternoon, good night sequence for Frazier. JP Crawford hits a 2-out double. That guy is so annoying. Hits a 2-out double off the scoreboard. Altuve with a Gold Glove caliber play throws out Julio Rodriguez, who really didn't believe it. He had to look back at Jose Altuve and said, did that really happen? Bottom of the third, Castillo filthy strikes out the side, paints the outside to get a strikeout, looking against Myers. That's a theme. Throws 99 gas and strikes out Maldi swinging. Disgusting changeup gets Altuve swinging. Top of the fourth, the wheels start coming off of Fromber. He started getting behind on hitters. Walks Suarez with 1 out. Haniger gets a 1-out double. Santana hits a slow roller back to Fromber. He throws it away at the plate. Man, that was a costly error. Suarez scores. We're at 1-1. Santana tries to take second on that play, but gets caught in a rundown and gets thrown out. That was very fortunate. Dylan Moores, though, singles on a 2-out line drive to right, scores Haniger from third. It's 2-1. Bottom of the fourth, Astros look to answer back, but Castillo had other ideas. Jeremy Pena takes a sinker into the gap for a double, but Yordan flies out. Bregman lines out. Tucker lines out. And that was that. They strand Pena at second. Top of the fifth, Fromber tries to settle back in, and he does. Strikes out Frazier swinging, followed by JP Crawford swinging. Rodriguez flies out. A much-needed 1-2-3 inning for Fromber. Bottom of the fifth. I mean, what can you say about Castillo? He just comes in and does his thing. 1-2-3 against Yuli, Diaz, and Myers. Myers caught again looking on a strike 3. Top of the sixth, third time through the lineup. Mariners at the plate, gets 2 quick outs, including Suarez swinging for the 6th strikeout for Fromber, but the wheels just fell off. Haniger works a 2-out walk. Santana doubles to right. Fromber walks the bases loaded, and Dusty lifts him for Neris, who gets out of the inning. Yeah. Oh, my goodness. Castillo takes the bump again, and he's just unfazed, sitting that long for the top of the 6th. Gets Altuve, and Pena hits. Here we go again. 2-out jam shot to center. And who's your daddy?
Bloop and a blast, Brandon. Bloop and a blast.
I mean, goes Oppo Taco under the train tracks to put Houston up for the permanent lead, 3-2, and then Breggy pops out. Let's pause the recap there and just talk about Yordan Alvarez. Josh, what do you think, man?
Dude, when he's locked in like this is what happens. We remember what he did in the ALCS. It feels like that all over again. He is locked in, knock on wood. Hopefully that continues for the Astros. He's been terrific. And Jeremy Pena, the other unsung hero today. I mean, couple big hits, even though one was just a little bloop in there. It didn't matter. He was on base a lot. He scored that big insurance run at the end. Nice to have that speed of him scoring from second base. And I mean, what else can you say about Yordan? He didn't try to do too much. He's like, okay, you're going to throw 100 out there. I'll just poke it in the Crawford boxes. And they learned their lesson after that, because when he had an opportunity, and we'll get to it, when he had an opportunity later in the game, they intentionally walked him, decided they'd roll the dice with Bregman, and that did not work.
Indeed. So we go to the top of the 7th. Brian Abreu into the game for Hector Neris. He started struggling with a slider. 1-out walk to JP Crawford, but strikes out Julio Rodriguez for the 2nd out. Dusty lifts Abreu for Montero. This kind of brings me to a point, like he ends up walking France, but then Suarez hits a bullet to left. Here's Yordan again. Flashing the leather, out there in left field, and really saves what could have been an inning that gets out of hands. Man, this is the second game in which it's not just Yordan's bat that's the difference, but it's also his defense out and left.
Yeah, no doubt. And he moves around out there pretty good. He can cover some ground. So really nice job by Yordan. Maybe this is a theme. Maybe they keep running him out there in left field. He's playing a great left field. What scares me a little bit, though, is watching him smack into the wall with his hands a couple times in the last two games. And we know he's been kind of fighting hand injury. So I'm kind of holding my breath every time I see him near that big hard wall. I don't want him hurting his hands. But, hey, no worries. He got it taken care of. And Astros looking good.
Yeah, no, it was really huge. That was absolutely huge. Luis Castillo, the bottom of the seventh, gets 2 quick outs. Aledmus Diaz works a long AB and gets a double down the third baseline.
Beautiful.
And then I'm trying to read my own notes here. Jake Myers gets lifted for David Hensley, who worked a really good at bat there. You thought maybe he would, work another walk again, but he ends up grounding out weakly, and that ends the inning for him.
I want to bring that up quickly. I was hoping for Vasquez in that situation. Somebody just maybe with a little more experience, somebody that doesn't mind just kind of slapping the ball to the right side, just poke it through the infield, try and get Diaz home. I felt like with Hensley, he did a good job. He worked a quality at bat, but maybe somebody like Vasquez, a little more experience. You don't need the big fly right there. You just got to poke it through the infield. Diaz is already on second base. So, as I was watching that, I understand why they went with Hensley. He's been hitting really well, but in my mind, I was thinking it was going to be Vasquez, but no dice.
No, it's true. And I've got a lot of thoughts here, and I want to get your thoughts on it as well. And everybody that's in the chat, make sure you're, let's get into the conversation as well. There was already a comment I want to touch on as well, but let's just finish out the recap here. Top of the 8th, Montero returns. Dubon's in at center field at this point. Montero gets a quick out, but then walks Santana. Jared Kelenic flies out to deep right, and then Montero with the paint job. Maybe it was a ball, but the paint job gets Kyle Raleigh for the third out in the inning. What did you think of Montero's outing this game?
Scary.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Right.
I'm just like, with Santana especially, I'm just like, this dude is not interested in swinging the bat.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to give him something that actually resembles a strike for him to. The whole time I was thinking, like, I could be the biggest weapon against the Astros. I could just go stand in the batter's box with the bat on my shoulders and then just walk down to first base.
We didn't mention
crazy.
Yeah, we didn't mention Brian Abreu. He came in for an outing as well. He also was kind of averse to throwing in the strike zone. It seemed like he didn't have his best stuff today after having a really good outing in game 1. Both he and Montero seemed to have trouble finding the strike zone, where the benefactors of some really gracious calls from the ump there. Before we go any further, let's just kind of get right to the elephant in the room. We already had a commenter bring this up. What were your thoughts here? It seems like Stanek is not available here because it looks like they stretched both Abreu and Montero over multiple innings here. It looks like Stanek's not available. That's a big deal. We haven't heard Dusty say anything about, well, obviously we'll hear it's going to get brought up in the post game for sure. If Stanek's not available, that's kind of scary, right?
Yeah. Did he punch a locker too? The locker right next to Phil Maton? Like, what the hell is going on? We did hear Dusty say they didn't want to commit to certain things because of some illness floating around the locker room. Remember that was a thing?
Yep. That's my thought too.
But they asked Dusty, I think not yesterday, day before, how is that, with the illnesses, is everything okay? And he said, yeah, I think we're good. So Dusty kind of squashed that. But at this point, I hope that's what it is with Stanek. You don't want it to be any kind of physical thing. They have a day off tomorrow. Hopefully, if it is an illness, he hadn't had to pitch. He has another day off. Hopefully, he'll be ready to go. But it's concerning for sure. And he wasn't even getting loose. It was clear that he wasn't going to be available today, like you said.
Yeah, it was clear that they were stretching to try to get to Presley in the ninth. And let's before we get to the ninth, let's talk about the bottom of the eighth. Andres Munoz comes on. Comes on. He replaces Castillo. Munoz was a guy who the Astros got to in game one. Baldy gave one a ride to center, but it died on that track because that's a big old center field out there. Altuve grounds out weekly. That's we kind of need to talk about Altuve as well.
Hit the whole series, man.
Yeah, you're 2-0. You're 2-0 without Altuve getting a hit for you. That's interesting, right?
Yeah, but let's give him credit for the defense. Like that may have saved some runs, especially the way Fromber was struggling with control and Altuve, like you mentioned earlier, some amazing plays in the field.
Two really big plays where he flashed the leather. That really was the difference.
Yes, but yeah, Altuve's got to get going. And if you notice, like he's just all over Pena, like so excited that Pena's performing. You almost kind of feel that baton being passed, that was Correa. Now it's Pena, and Altuve seems like Pena's biggest fan. It's great to see.
Well, Pena is absolutely the perfect table setter, as it turns out, for Yordan Alvarez.
Yeah.
So we get in, Altuve grounds out weekly. Pena walks again for Yordan in the bottom of the eighth. Scott Service finally learns his lesson. Learns his lesson and says, "No, homie, you're not beating us. You're not beating up on us anymore." Gives the intentional pass to Yordan Alvarez, but Bregman, Alex Bregman goes full Michael Jordan meme because he took that personally. He takes a pitch on the outside, goes the other way, puts the Astros up 4-2, gives them that insurance run. Kyle Tucker just kind of strikes out swinging. But I mean, that was 101 down middle. Bregman, how big has he been in this series? If he doesn't hit the 2-run home run in game one to get them off the mat, that game is a completely different game. And here he is with Presley, who some of our peers call him begrudgingly Stressly at times.
I saw him today.
Yeah, we saw Stressly. But here's Bregman in a big situation, putting on an insurance run in the eighth. Talk about Bregman, man. Like how big is it that this guy has come back and become the Bregman of 2019?
It's huge. You have somebody that can actually protect Yordan, and you get that lefty righty thing, which kind of, the pitcher has to make an adjustment from lefty to righty. I know they intentionally walked him, but nevertheless, he thought he was going to have to pitch to Yordan for a second. But let's talk about Bregman. Smart baseball player. Knowing that the way they've been attacking him is they've been trying to just hit him with fastballs on the outside corner because they know Bregman doesn't like to swing at those. Typically in any game situation, he'll take that pitch hoping that the pitcher will make a mistake later in the at bat with something a little more in that he can drive. But Bregman, knowing the situation, this guy throws 101 miles an hour. They've been attacking me outside, so be prepared for 101 on the outside corner. First pitch, boom. Bregman is ready for it, slaps it into right field, and the run scores with Pena. So it's just Bregman is such a smart hitter, knowing the situation, knowing how they want to attack him, and him knowing you don't want to get deep in the count with this guy that throws 101 and has a nasty slider. Like, you don't have much of a chance. But if you can guess fastball and not try and yank it in the Crawford box, just try and put the barrel on it and slap it to right field. And we saw the Mariners with that strategy today too. They were trying to go to right field against Fromber. Look at this baseball changing a little bit where everybody's not just trying to yank it in the Crawford boxes, but it's just Bregman's a smart player, man. He had a plan and it worked. He executed it, and it made all the difference in the ball game. That extra insurance run, I know it didn't come to fruition, but it made me feel a lot better because it was touch and go there for a little bit with Presley.
Especially with Julio Rodriguez coming up in the top of the ninth. You've got Presley, who I don't think it can be overstated. Presley's been, basically a lot of players have been on ice right now because of the gap between games. And so he was understandably a little rusty. Rest affects every player differently. And we saw Justin Verlander, it affected him a little adversely in game one. However, Framber Valdez comes out in game two, looks really, really sharp through four. But Presley, it's kind of a mix with him. Like sometimes he comes out and looks really, really amazing and sharp. And sometimes he comes out and it's a little bit stressful. But at the end of the day, he has really, really nasty stuff. And that really came to a head at the top of the ninth. He comes in 4-pitch walk to Frazier.
That was the theme of the game, man. Like that's what killed Verlander, was that first batter walk in the first game that came around to score. Framber, he went back to being wild Framber today, because I was looking at his line. He ended up walking 3 guys, right?
Yep.
And he got chased from the game after 5 2/3. It's funny. His stat line is very similar to Castillo's, except for Castillo went a little longer. Castillo gave up 5 hits. Framber gave up 4.
Yep.
Castillo 3 runs, Framber 2. 6 strikeouts for Framber, 7 for Castillo. But the 0 walks for Castillo, as opposed to the 3 walks for Framber, allowed him to stay in the game longer. And that was a big difference right there. Framber was throwing a lot of pitches, and they pulled him with the bases loaded to put Neris in there, and that turned out to be the right move by Dusty. Dusty making the right call once again.
Yeah, J.P. Crawford hits sharply to first. Frazier's caught off.
Yeah.
He's cheating off base, which leads to a huge double play. And it's just one of those things in which this is one of those, we saw it in 2017, and we saw it in the subsequent runs in 19 and in 21, which is when you get really deep into the playoffs, it's usually because balls bounce your way. And that J.P. Crawford, he stung that ball down the first base line. It just so happened that he shot it right to Yuli Gurriel, who was sitting there waiting. He catches Frazier cheating off of first. Frazier can't even react because the ball is just immediately in Yuli's glove. He can't get back. Yuli just casually walks to first. Double play. That really, that was so huge after that 4-pitch walk to start the inning. And then Julio Rodriguez. This is why that play is that much more important. Julio Rodriguez stings a double. And so if you have a guy, there's a good chance that Frazier scores from first on that. But like you said, it's even bigger that Bregman's able to score that insurance run, because 1 run doesn't tie the game. 1 run would only decrease the lead for you. They don't even get that. Fortunately, with the tying run at the plate, ooh la la, Ty France strikes out swinging to was that a curve in the dirt for Presley there?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that was a curve. It was some sharp breaking ball that went into the dirt.
It was a breaking ball, because I think we threw 4 fastballs today.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the Mariners are going to make some adjustments there, because even with Framber, I don't remember him throwing his curveball that much, and Framber throws his curveball a lot. With the Montero 10 changeups in a row, and Framber, how many curveballs did he try to flip into the zone with 3 balls in the count and end up walking the guy? At least 2 out of the 3. So I wonder if the Mariners are going to look at these games and just attack off speed. And, that's probably a pretty good plan against Lance McCullers.
Well, to their credit, the Mariners have had a good game plan this entire series. With JV, they attacked early with him because they knew that's what JV's MO is pump fastballs into the zone and get ahead early. And so they attacked JV early and didn't try to do too much with it, really just tried to pick their spots. And that's how they were able to really chip away at Justin Verlander in game 1. In game 2, they really were scouting Framber's breaking ball. And, the commentators talked about before the game how they had been doing nothing but in BP, but trying to hit the ball the other way. And it really looked like they were trying to stay at home and lay back on those breaking balls that were coming in. And if something landed in the zone, they were going to try to do, take it the other way. And it caused, it led to walks because Fromber really relies on a lot of swings and misses at stuff that's not in the zone because his stuff is so nasty. It starts out looking like it's going to be in the zone, ends out of the zone. And a lot of Mariners hitters were able to lay off of his breaking stuff and work walks and counts because they were really disciplined in their at-bats. But it turned out, it wasn't enough to overcome today.
No, I thought they had a great approach. It's just Astros getting clutch outs when you really need them. And they were good. And the defense was spectacular again today. I know I already mentioned it, but that's a big deal in games like this, not letting extra, especially when you're walking a bunch of guys. You got to play solid defense or you're in double trouble.
I just want to answer this question here really quick. I'd love to hear Charlie Palolo talk about these games we're missing out. You can always read Charlie Palolo on sportsmap.com. And, you never know. Maybe we'll be seeing more from Charlie Palolo later. We'll find out. But we're a big fan of that guy too.
We are. And he already sent me his article for the Astros game, but I'm not going to be able to get to that for a while.
Right.
And I already wrote something for the Astros game. We're going to do this, but that's okay. We'll have Charlie's up a little later this evening or early tomorrow morning, and you can see Charlie's reaction to the game. I also asked him to kind of give us a preview of Game 3. So if you love Charlie's takes on stuff, he doesn't only talk about this game. He's going to give you an outlook on what to expect when McCullers takes the ball in Game 3.
There's Alan. Alan's echoing the same thing as well. Says he misses that guy. Max is in for us again. What's up, Max? We appreciate you tuning back in again. Dennis commented earlier, said Service wants no piece of Yordan, but Breggy showed him that's not a good idea. Talk about how valuable it is to have Bregman hitting like old Bregman again, because somebody commented earlier, and I forget who it was. I think it was JRG that commented and said Bregman has been on fire all year. That's not true. I wish that were the case, but Bregman for the first half of the year really scuffled. And we really wondered, and it seems like blasphemy now, but was it, had we seen the best of Bregman? And what it really turned out was that Bregman was just trying to figure out how to hit with his body in the physical condition that it is in now, because he's not the same player. He has gone through a lot of injuries and a lot of struggles from now between what happened in 2019. And so he's not the same player physically, and he's learned how to adjust to that, but they're not where they're at without Yordan being able to have that protection behind him. And what does it mean now for Yordan to be able to know that they've got that protection behind him? They're like, okay, bro, intentionally walk Yordan. And then also you're going to face one of the other hottest hitters in the AL right now.
Yeah. And then you got not only Bregman, then you got Tuck behind him, who you saw Tucker do what he did to Castillo today. That was a great at bat. I know
he was this close to hitting a second one too.
He was. So, man, having those guys, and with Yuli actually looking respectable in these playoffs, I love Yuli. Maybe that rest did him good. I know he didn't have a huge game today, but I didn't feel like, oh no, Yuli's coming up. I was like, all right, Yuli's coming up. Maybe we'll get something going here. So Yuli could be a guy when we go to Seattle that gets going again. And I like to let Miss Diaz being in the DH spot. I don't know about you, but getting that double, I don't know if anybody else would have gotten that. I don't know if Mancini would have pulled that off in that at bat the way he's been swinging it.
Well, I wanted to bring that up with you because up until that at bat, Lidmus, hadn't had a hit. And it's understandable though. I mean, it's Luis Castillo. That's the problem, is it's really tough to judge. You get to the playoffs and it's everyone's best of the best. Mm-hmm. And so the Astros saw the Mariners best of the best and Luis Castillo. And this was the pitcher that was looming large in Game 1, because if the Astros don't make that comeback in Game 1, you go down 0-1, and then you have Luis Castillo in Game 2, and you go, oh man, You're facing their best pitcher going into game 2 with then going back to Seattle after that. So it's, it's really hard, but I wanted to talk to you about that because up until that point, up until that double, Aledmys Diaz hadn't got a hit either. And I was going to ask you whether you thought, maybe a guy like David Hensley might start getting a sniff for the DH role. But, obviously, now that Diaz gets that AB, I don't know if that's as big a question, but I do love Hensley's approach for being a rook, for this guy to work counts the way he does. And commenters, guys in the chat, let's talk, give us your thoughts too. What do you think about David Hensley?
I mean, he's really only going to get opportunities as a pinch hitter. It looks like that could change, but he hasn't looked overmatched up there.
Nope.
I did feel like, and the announcers made the point that patience up there is nice, but it also got him down a couple strikes early in that count.
Yeah.
And, when you're down with a couple strikes and you got guys throwing 100 miles an hour with wicked breaking stuff, you don't have a good shot. So right. I would have liked to see him approach it a little more like Breggy, try and get a fastball early in the count and put some wood on it. I think that's when you're facing guys like this, you better get them early. And that's why we see the Astros swing early so much in these postseasons the last few years. If you get a fastball you can handle, that might be the best pitch you see your entire at bat. Go for it. Yeah. So it just hasn't really paid off for Altuve yet, but that dude's going to hit. So that excites me that we haven't even seen Altuve get going yet.
No, it's huge. And we talked about it a little earlier. You're up 2-0 and Altuve hasn't even really shown up in this series yet, at least from the bat. Yeah. From the glove standpoint, Altuve's absolutely been there. And I think it's huge. Floyd says Alvarez is like Michael Myers to the Mariners. I think Minute Maid Park is Michael Myers to the Mariners. They're going to have nightmares about hitting in that place. And, Munoz especially, Munoz is a guy who throws in the triple digits as well. And they have touched him up in both games.
Mm-hmm. We talked about this after game 1. Astros ruin good bullpens, man.
Yeah.
They've made a career out of doing stuff like that in the postseason. So this is nothing new. They threw the Astros a lot of sliders in game 1. And the announcers made a comment too. It seems, I think it was Francoeur, was like, seems like the Astros are kind of sitting slider. And I think he was right, because when Maldonado ripped that ball to center, when we thought it might have a chance to be a home run, it was just a little off the end of the bat.
Yep.
He was sitting slider because that pitch was at like 90 miles an hour and he crushed it. It was just a little off the end of the bat. So I don't think Maldy's sitting slider like that with 2 strikes on him, unless like he's straight up guessing, like, I'm going to look silly if it's a fastball, I'm going for the slider. And he crushed it. And I saw a lot of the other guys kind of doing that too. So, and the Mariners throw more sliders than pretty much anybody else. So it's a good game plan for the Astros. Like, hey, we're going to see a lot of breaking stuff, be prepared for that.
Well, when you get into the playoffs and you have, especially a day between games as well, but when you're in a multiple game series against an opponent, you really do have a lot of days to be able to prepare. And so it makes a lot of sense that you're going to have these guys scouted really well. But what's really interesting is the difference between the score in game 1 and game 2. And I think a lot of folks thought, myself included, that this was the kind of score that we were going to see in game 1 as well, with JV up on the mound and Logan Gilbert pitching for the Mariners. And that turns out to be a really high scoring affair, 8-7. And now you're 4-2 in game 2, which was more of a nail biter. It just goes to show you really never know what you're in store for in the MLB postseason.
No. And it's interesting because Dusty made the comment today, it'll probably come down to a couple home runs. Dusty was like, it's going to be hard to string some hits together off of, Fromber and Castillo. And Dusty was right. It came down to home runs from Tuck and a home run from Yordan. They didn't string a bunch of hits together. I know, Bregman got that hit to give him that extra run, but for the most part, it came down to the long ball, which is surprising because they were able to string a bunch of hits together off of Verlander in game 1. They were slapping him all over the yard, and that wasn't the case today. So you're right. it's baseball, right? When you think a game's going to go like this, well, it goes back the other way. So we'll take it, though. It's nice to be on the winning end. I don't know about you. I was really nervous in this one. I almost felt more nervous when we had the lead than when we didn't have the lead. You know, I'm more nervous when we're up by 1 than when we're down by 1. Just me personally. I don't know why.
I'm playoff baseball is excruciating anyway. Like it really is. Like it's one of those things where it feels like a 4-hour surgery that you're awake for. And it really just is excruciating
on your crotch. It's really bad.
yeah, in the most sensitive of places. No, I feel you. I think one of the, and I hate to even say unsung, but we haven't even really talked about it. Jeremy Pena, a rookie,
JP3,
this year. Hey, does everybody remember that he's a rookie? Like,
he's a rookie,
but this guy does not feel like a rookie. He does not feel like a rookie. This guy takes quality at bats in the postseason and has been in crucial ABs and been able to get on for Yordan Alvarez. And that's a big deal. Like, we always talk about, it's a big responsibility. They had flipped Pena. They'd gone back and forth between Pena and La Pena between in the 2 spot there, going Gurriel and Pena. And they settled on Jeremy Pena in the 2 hole. And that's a big spot because you've got, Yordan behind you. So you're going to see some pitches because they don't want, they're not trying to pitch to Yordan. And so you're going to see more fastballs.
Yep.
But in game 1, he takes his bugaboo pitch, which is that slider outside, serves it up to get on base for Yordan to hit the game-winning home run. And tonight really has a good AB, has a couple of good ABs, and is on base multiple times for Yordan Alvarez.
100%. And we also got to remember this is replacing. Oh, Heather's back on again. She was on with us the other night. This is replacing Michael. This is replacing Michael Brantley. Really, we act like he doesn't exist, like he's a distant memory.
Right.
But Michael Brantley was that guy that would hit in that spot for you and get on base and move the chains along. Move the train along for Yordan. And Jeremy Pena has done a great job so far of being that guy. And that's with what Altuve's been on base once in both games. So even more pressure has been on Pena to get on base because Altuve's just been scuffling.
Yeah. Joseph brings up the standing thing that we talked about earlier. And our best guess on that is that he's ill. We haven't had a chance to listen to the post-game pressers yet. We'll react more to that a little later.
I did hear a little tidbit quickly. It was very, very interesting to see Carlos Correa interviewing Jeremy Pena on TBS's set because he's one of their guest analysts. So how crazy is that to see Carlos Correa asking Pena about, winning the game?
Yeah.
And you could see kind of Pena light up when he's like, hey, this is Carlos. So it's so funny. It's got to be weird for Carlos, right? Watching Pena come in here and help them win a game. And he's sitting on a set at 27 years old and not playing in playoff games. He's not.
Well, I mean, that it goes without saying that's has to be the reason why he opted out of his deal, or at least is reportedly going to opt out of his deal. Warren wants to know Carlos who? Carlos Correa. You probably don't remember that guy. It's been a long season, so Warren, I understand. We got that news breaking today too, that Carlos is reportedly not going to rejoin the Twins. He's going to test. I don't know if he's going to not going to rejoin the Twins. He reportedly is going to opt out of free agency and test the market again.
Yeah.
Look, before we get back to the game, give me your thoughts on that, because I don't know that Carlos had the kind of year he had a better year in 2021 than in 2022.
22 bombs, the same amount as Jeremy Pena in Pena's rookie season.
Yeah, at a 50th of the price.
Yeah, and Pena ended up hitting over 250 for the year. So, I mean, that's a decent average, especially in baseball these days, to hit over 250 and have 22 bombs as a rookie. That's damn good. But to your point about Correa, we knew he was going to do this anyway, right? Like, he didn't get that mega deal. So we knew that's why they put these opt-outs in his contract. And that's why he took the deal with Minnesota's, because they were willing to do this. And I got to give credit to Jim Crane for seeing into the future a little bit and going, man, if we sign Correa to this short-term deal for all this money, he's going to opt out and we're going to be right where we were. And we're not going to know anything about Jeremy Pena. We'll have wasted another year of Jeremy Pena. So, way to go, Click and Crane for making the right move, it seems.
Well, we've talked about the kind of the flack that Jim Crane gets on our channel, and people call him cheap because he didn't pay to keep Springer here, which Springer in his first year didn't play a full year. He missed a lot of that season, and then Carlos Correa had an okay season, but not really that much better than Jeremy Pena. Had the same amount of bombs as you mentioned, and so you're paying Pena a 50th of the price. I don't know. We keep saying it's just an incredible number. That's why I keep repeating it, because they're paying a 50th of the price tag that they would be paying for Carlos Correa right now to Jeremy Pena to get a very, very similar output. That's what the smart teams do. That's what you have to do as a smart team to be able to contend for multiple seasons and to be able to be a dynasty. If and I'm not saying that the Astros are there yet. I think there's an argument to call them that, but I'm not saying that's what they are. I'm just saying that they are a team whose window has been open now for multiple years. But the only way that you do that is to be able to develop your own and to be able to replace guys who are high performers in free agency with next man up and getting your prospects to be able to fill in those roles, plug and play, and to be able to continue the winning.
100%. And not paying market value for younger guys, because that's when you get hit over the head with those just tough to deal with contracts. Is when it's a young guy and he wants market value. The Astros are like, no, we'll go sign an older Michael Brantley to a 2-year deal. We'll go get Charlie Morton or Garrett Cole and try and revitalize their career. We'll go get Verlander as he's older and a little less expensive. Now, that may not be the case next year, obviously, but it works. And they made the right call with Carlos. And I want to give Jeremy a shout out for his defense. He's been playing a great shortstop so far in the postseason. So that hasn't been the issue either.
That pirouette play where he vacuums it up and just like turns around and throws it, it's beautiful. It's a thing of beauty. And he doesn't have the cannon arm that Correa has, and a lot of people have pointed that out. Yeah, exactly. Who does? But at the same time, though, man, he's just really good defensively, and he's been as good on offense for them. He's been as valuable, if not more valuable, for them on offense. But when you get into the postseason, it's the old cliche of pitching and defense wins. And man, today was the emblematic example of that, which is you really needed some clutch defense. You needed a guy like Yordan out and we don't even think about Yordan when we're talking about the production that he brings to this team, but he plays a monster left field. He had a big defensive stop in game 2. In game 1, he had the big throw out at the plate with Ty France. He has shown up as much with his leather in this series as he is with his bat, and that's saying a lot.
It is saying a lot, because look what Yordan's specialty is. And we need somebody to play a good left field, with Brantley gone, and you have Diaz and you have some decent guys out there. But when you can run Yordan out there, and I think sometimes some guys like playing the field better. They feel like they hit better when they're always in the game. So if that's the case, then let him keep playing left field, man, especially left field at Minute Maid. It's more manageable. We'll see if Dusty changes how he does things when they go to Seattle. I'll be curious if he sees it differently without, having the short left field like they have at Minute Maid. The other thing, you brought up defense, also speed. I'm not sure Correa scores on that Bregman single in the 9th inning. Or I should say in the bottom of the 8th. I'm not sure Correa scores on that.
I agree with you. I
Yeah.
agree with you, man. Like that was the difference, right? And obviously it helped that the throw was a little offline. It was a little
Yeah.
up the line on third base side, but Pena's wheels were what made him rush that throw. And
Yeah.
I think that was the difference between that being a bang bang play at the plate versus Pena being able to be there, and kind of make that easy. And it looked easier than it really was, but he got there way ahead of that throw.
He did. He got a great jump and a really nice slide. He can move, man. He's fast.
No
And,
doubt.
when you're 24, you're pretty fast typically. It helps.
I want. What do you think about John? So John, I brought this up a little earlier. John says he thinks Henley should DH in Game 3. Does the double that Aledmys Diaz was able to work against Castillo, does that change your mind any about who should be in the DH role?
I'm a big Diaz guy. I
am too.
And I think we also have to remember he's maybe a little rusty too, because he had that groin injury and he had to miss some time, miss some at bats, and he had to get back from that. And there wasn't a whole lot of season left when he returned from that injury. So I think he's just going to get better as he sees more pitches and plays more. But I love what I saw from Hensley, and I agree with the comment there that he looked very comfortable at the plate in both at bats. So,
Yeah.
and he's got some power, and we talked about it the other day. His OPS is over 1,000 since he's been up with the Astros, if we're talking about the regular season. So I don't have a problem with them giving him a shot. But when I saw the lineup come out today and I saw Diaz in the lineup instead of Mancini, I felt a lot better. Nothing against Mancini. Love that guy. He's been fighting it, man. And in the playoffs, it's not the time to work through slumps. You just got to play who's hitting.
Dusty attributed to Diaz having a little bit of a faster bat. He said with the high velo that Castillo was going to bring, that he thought, Diaz was a better candidate for the DH spot.
He's a good fastball hitter. Yeah.
Yeah. Does Diaz look healthy to you?
I saw him grabbing his hand on that foul ball inside. So sometimes it just stings you for a second, because it's a little in on you, and that's not an injury. That's just a swinging a baseball bat thing that happens from time to time, especially when a guy's throwing 100 miles an hour. Mm-hmm. But, if he's DHing, as long as he can run the bases and hit comfortably, I'm not too worried, unless I see him like obviously limping around, then that'd be different. He looks healthy enough. How about that?
Yeah. Matt talks about what you talked about a little earlier, which was about Yordan hitting the wall there. We all collectively hold our breath when Yordan goes running into the wall there.
With his hands, you're like, nah.
But statistically speaking, Yordan is a more productive batter when he plays left field.
Yeah.
So that is interesting. I don't know that there's a choice. You don't have a better left fielder. I mean, I guess, maybe Diaz you could put out there, but Diaz had that growing injury right before the end of the season. They brought him back, but they've been really ginger with kind of how they use him. And honestly, that's why I asked you about Diaz, because I'm not convinced that Diaz is 100% healthy. No one is after 162, but for the commenter who said, they want to see Yordan DH, like I'd love it too in a perfect world, but I don't know that you have a better answer at left field. And certainly while Diaz can play a decent left field when he's healthy, he doesn't have a better arm than Yordan.
No. And I'm just curious if they see it differently with a really big left field, but I don't know. Dusty's used Yordan, and I remember Yordan playing in the World Series in Atlanta in left field. Dusty put him out there then. Do you really tell Yordan what to do at this point?
No.
It's just kind of, what do you feel like doing today, Yordan? You want to play some left field? You want to DH? Whatever. Just leave him alone. If he's playing hot, look, we worry about him getting banged up because we've seen it happen with him, and he's so crucial to the team. So I get the concern, but I mean, it's the playoffs. I think you just got to go out there and play your best guys and hope for the best. And to your point, like, who do they put out in left field? They've needed every bit of offense they have gotten in these first two games. Yep. I don't think you
And
can
defense.
and defense. I don't know if you can put somebody in left field if you think it's going to hurt you offensively. I don't know if the margin for error is enough in that circumstance. You got to put runs on the board, and they're going to be fighting for their lives in Seattle. So they're probably going to put up some runs. And McCullers, what do you think? He gives you, even if it's a good game, 5 innings at best, probably for Lance. With how
probably.
many, with how many full counts he goes to, and
Always.
just the way he pitches. He doesn't want to give anybody anything to hit. He's going to fight you on every pitch. 3-2, he's going to throw you a slider right off the plate. So with him, pitch count's going to be up, bullpen's going to be needed. I wonder if this is when we see, an Urquidy or a Garcia, or if Dusty keeps rolling with the bullpen. And I'm sure Stanek's availability will have something to do with that.
Well, I like the way it stacks. And again, like you also have a Hunter Brown that's waiting there in the bullpen too for you. And you don't really know how they're going to use him. He might be a guy that you piggyback with McCullers as well. But you're right. I mean, you've got a lot of guys who can give you multiple innings and give you some long relief in some crucial situations. And Hunter Brown has shown that this moment's not too big for him. Think about how many rookies the Astros are relying on right now. Pena's coming through in big situations. David Hensley working, big ABs and pinch hit roles. And then you've got a guy like Hunter Brown who came in and put up a 0 for you in game 1. And he's waiting in the wings, possibly to give you relief in the bullpen. A lot of rookies here. And I guess, the same thing can be said about, Seattle. Seattle's got a lot of young guys too, but that's the difference between a team that's on the come and the way that the Mariners are versus an established, dominant, shall we call them a juggernaut in the Astros, considering that they have seemingly owned the AL in the past few years. I think that's such an interesting part of it, is that you have all of these young guys for the Astros who have lost guys like Garrett Cole, who've lost George Springer, Carlos Correa, and, Michael Brantley to injury. And you just have plug and played, and you've been able to continue to be competitive, if not dominant in certain situations. Like, to have a guy like Hensley, Pena, and Hunter Brown, that's huge.
Of course. And you haven't had any draft picks for the last couple of years. So to see that there's, some young talent in the system, that's good. And, let's bring up Jake Myers. He got to play today. He's a young guy that you're talking about. Is he technically a rookie? He came up last year. I don't know if he's played a full 162, probably not. So you might be able to call him a rookie. It didn't look great today, starting off the game. Dusty made a comment a couple days ago that he liked the matchup for him and that he could be out in center field. And sure enough, it was Jake Myers. He got pinch hit for later in the game because, as you mentioned, he didn't look great at the plate. High velo seemed to be giving him some issues, but
he got caught looking a couple times on strike. And that when
he might have been sitting slider like we were talking about, and just you're not catching up with 100 if you're sitting slider very often.
No, for sure. Let's see. Matt says, "Are you taking this team or the 2017 team?" I'll take 2017 just because I've already seen them lift a trophy.
Yeah.
So get back to me at the end of this season. I mean, look, this 2017 didn't have a monster like Yordan Alvarez on that team. That could be the difference. And it was honestly the difference between the Astros not being able to finish the deal in 2021, because Yordan was the reason they got over the hump in that tough ALCS matchup against Boston. He just becomes a monster and torches Boston pitching and carries them into the World Series. And when Yordan stopped hitting, that was the end of the run. So yeah, I mean, if I'm saying, do I take this team? I mean, honestly, I would have taken, if you're comparatively speaking, I would have taken the 2019 team over the 2017 team, just as far as what was on paper, but that doesn't matter. What matters is, how you finish the deal. 2017 did, 2019 didn't, unfortunately. And we are where we are. I would love to see, this team I'd love to see at the end of this, if it so happens to be in which, this team is able to seal the deal, then, I'd love to take a look at the lineups then and then just do kind of a comparative analysis on that. But not going there yet. Not even going to jinx it like that. So knocking on all the wood, and yeah, so we'll just go from there. James says Jake Myers is nothing more than a AAA player. He should not be on the big league roster. Jake's just had a tough road back from injury, and I think we would, had he not, chicken winged his shoulder on the wall in Chicago last year,
Yeah.
I wonder if the legacy of Jake Myers would be very different.
I mean, it has to be. He was clutch. He playing good defense. We've heard James Click speak glowingly of him, that he's one of the best athletes in the entire organization. We thought that pinch running might be a big role for him on this team, and we did see that happen in game one. Remember, he came in for Hensley and was on second base when that home run got hit, and kind of gave up the coming around third base after Yordan walked it off. So they got him in there. Dusty must see something, or he wouldn't have started him today. But it didn't look great. They got him out of there early, and I feel like it's a Dusty thing. What did you speaking of? How did you think Dusty handled it today? I know we were kind of second guessing him a little bit in game one, and all his moves turned out to be gold. Did you? I mean, the Neris move to get Fromber out, that worked out today. I was kind of undecided. Just bringing any reliever into a postseason game with the bases loaded is kind of, that can be real ugly because you just get behind in the count. And then if you have to just get something over, then it can get crushed and you give up a big hit, or you walk them and you get flustered. But Neris came in and took care of business.
Well, and especially in that situation, because you pull Fromber against Cal Raleigh, and it turns him around to his stronger side.
Yeah.
And so that's what's, I think that's interesting. You pull a lefty in which you have a favorable lefty, right, lefty matchup, and you put in Neris. But, we saw the same thing in 2021, which is, for all of the flack and all of the second guessing that we give to Dusty, it really seems like in the postseason, he has his finger on the switch and makes the right move. I wondered the same thing. With Neris coming in, I was like, man, but I will say this in my defense, I also didn't realize that Stanek is seemingly not an option at this point. And that seemed that's where I thought, okay, well, you've got so much depth. Why even go to Neris there? But if we think that Stanek is not available, which it seemed he was not, then now I understand that situation a little bit more now. And I had the same questions about extending Abreu into another inning and giving Montero a 4-out appearance. That was something that I really worried about in the moment. What did you think about seeing Montero come out for that second inning?
It seems like Dusty's enjoying doing that, right? Like have somebody come out and get a couple outs and then pull them and then put the new guy in for an out and then carry them over into the next inning, which may not be the worst idea. If somebody just comes in to get an out, then they get the out, they're comfortable in the game. So you feel like, I can put them back out there. They pitched well. They're comfortable being in the game. Anytime you go to a new guy out of your bullpen in the postseason, anything can happen. Emotions run high, especially with the umpire today. I know the Astros got a couple calls, and the umpire in game one, for the most part, they're sticking to that K zone. There's not a lot of, pitchers calls going on for the most part. So that has been interesting. Something's got to be up with Stanek. It has to be. It doesn't make any sense because they had all that layoff of time. And then he hasn't even gotten up and warmed up that I've seen in these first two games.
No, I think there's clearly something going on there. And whether it's, an illness, sort of health or otherwise, there's clearly something going on there. I think the same thing, which is you really never know. Of course, from an Astros perspective, we're going to think that the strike zone was good. And I think for the most part, it was very, very fair. But yeah,
Two or
I
three
think,
pitches that went against the Mariners, I think.
yeah, I think there were a few in which the Astros benefited from it, but they weren't so egregious that you can't say you should have been protecting the plate. I think in all those situations in playoff baseball where every AB counts, you have to be protecting the plate. And I think for the most part, the ump had a great, very fair zone today. But I can recall a couple of times off the top of my head in which specifically Montero was the benefactor of
those changeups, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say this, in my very limited baseball experience a million years ago, I can tell you this. Umpires get tired of guys taking close pitches over and over and over and over again and extending the game. There's something in umpires innately that are just kind of like, dude, swing the damn bat. Like, I don't want to be here all day, because I mean, he was just barely missing. It's not like when you're wild, you never get those close calls. But when you're like today with Montero, when you're just clipping off the edge of the zone over and over and over again, you're more likely to get those close calls than, if you're wild thing out there and you don't know where the ball's going. So I think part of that is, because he was, Rafael Montero was doing a good job at keeping it close and really hitting it around those corners. And then eventually they'll give you one. And like I said, umps get tired of guys just standing there. They don't want these 4-hour games. And if it's close, there's like, swing the damn bat, man. Let's go. And I think that might have been part of it because, I mean, how many was it? 12 in a row that he threw of changes, something like that. It was ridiculous. And that might have been over two batters, but he did not want to throw his fastball. They just kept going to that change.
Lee continues to message us in the chat here, and he's a Yankees fan. He wants to see the Astros in the ALCS for a rematch. Lee, be careful what you wish for, brother. I mean, it's not a done deal yet, but just be careful what you wish for. But yes, I think as storyline goes, that is the preferred matchup that we'd all like to see, just because there's so much history between those teams. So we'll see how that goes. And we have here, John says Yankees are desperate getting back at the Astros. Well, yeah, I would. They've got something to prove. I'm just not going to look past this series. There's still a lot of baseball left to play. I'm not even going to get into that, but
Mariners have played us close.
Exactly. So the difference in these two games have been 3 runs collectively. It's been 3 runs across 2 games. So Astros fans, just, bide your time. If you get out of this, round and go on to the next one, just, it'll be a great feat to be able to get to a 6th straight ALCS for the Astros. That will be an amazing feat in and of itself. So I would say just let's all not put the cart before the horse. Let's just eat the meal that's in front of us. We had a question that came in about McCullers and just, what do we think we're going to see out of McCullers? It's been a long layoff for everybody. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think some people, there's a lot of people that are on the chat that are now here that weren't earlier. What are your thoughts on McCullers on pitching in Game 3?
I like it, man. He's got that attitude, man, where he wants to rip your heart out. So if you're going to go on the road, I know the splits haven't been as great for McCullers outside of Minute Maid, but I think he has the temperament for it. He missed out last year after the Chicago series, didn't have a chance to pitch, in the ALCS or the World Series. So McCullers has got some, got a little bit of, hey, I missed out last year. This is important. I want to go out and prove myself this year and win and be a part of it. He doesn't, but if you want to ask, I think he's probably out of the game in 5 or 6 innings because that's just what McCullers does. I don't think that's going to be because he gives up a bunch of runs. But even Dusty said the other day, because they asked about Verlander, like, hey, are you still worried about, pitch count with Verlander with him coming off of Tommy John? He's like, not anymore. He was like, during the regular season, we were just kind of getting our feet wet, seeing how it went. He goes, but with Lance, that's still an issue with the pitch count with Lance. So Dusty just said that 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can, I think 100 would be surprising. I think more like 90.
Yeah. And if that's into 5 innings, you're lucky, I think.
Yeah.
Not because I don't like Lance McCullers. I love the competitive energy in that guy, but
You won't
like
give
you
it.
said, he's a guy who's just a competitive guy, and he's going to fight. He's not going to give in to you.
Yeah.
And so he's not going to throw you something right down the plate. He'd rather walk you because of his incredible stuff. And he just trusts that he can, get the ground ball or get out of the inning. I saw there's a couple comments here. Andrew says, does Altuve being cold worry you? No, it doesn't worry me, because the fact is they're up 2-0, and I trust that Altuve will come around. So I actually am very encouraged by the fact that they're up 2-0 and Altuve hasn't been hitting. If they were 0-2, I would be discouraged. I would be worrying about him. The Yankees guy says, Lee says, I've seen on Twitter there was another fight at Dodger Stadium. There's always a fight at Dodger Stadium,
even when there's not a game there.
Yeah, exactly. There's just fights happening at Dodger Stadium. Hey, we appreciate that as content creators, because we can always turn around a good fight video to get some clicks. Warren says, how many home runs does Yordan have as Dusty? Does it sit him every 4 to 5 games during the season? I don't know, Warren. I'm going to say that you might be surprised, considering that's done for preventative reasons, and especially considering he's been fighting those sore hands towards the back end of the season. They still were able to win 100 plus games with sitting Yordan, all those games. And the most important part of the season is the postseason. And so he's absolutely raking. So I'm totally cool with the fact that they sat him as much as they did, especially seeing what the result was going to be.
Yeah. I mean, if he played as many games as Aaron Judge, maybe that's kind of like the question, so if he played as many games as Judge, I would say 165 home runs.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Does that sound right?
Now, Hungwin gives us a really good question. I want to talk about this. When can we see Christian Vasquez starting? That's a great question, and it's one that's kind of hanging out there, because Maldi's a favorite for the pitchers. He's a guy who calls a good game, but Vasquez is your offense. Are we going to be okay with Christian Vasquez just taking pinch hit roles here, or subbing in late in game, or do we expect to see him starting? Do we see him starting in game 3, like
game 4, maybe? So Maldi doesn't have to catch 3 games in a row, because there's no off day, right? Don't they go like Saturday, Sunday, Monday? I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So if that's the case, maybe they don't want to start Maldi 3 games in a row, having to catch all 3 games. So maybe if it is Christian Javier, somebody like that, pitching the 4th game, maybe it's Vasquez that catches that game. I also wouldn't mind kind of splitting it up halvesies, right? Maybe get him in for a few innings, each game. We saw that in game 1 where they pinch hit Vasquez and got him in the game. Maybe we'll see some more of that later, maybe a little earlier in the game, but it's going to depend on if the Astros need the runs, because, Dusty's going to leave Maldi in there if they have a cushion. But I think the most likely start for Vasquez would be game 4, so that Maldi wouldn't have to start 3 games in a row.
Yeah, that makes sense. Matt says he thinks Saturday. So that means we're going 3 days in a row. Well, actually, maybe not. I mean, if the series ends early, then maybe we're not going 3 days in a row. But hey, guys, we're gonna be live streaming again after game 3 as well. So make sure you guys tune in, and we really appreciate you guys giving us some support, man. These are awesome. These is the first time. This is our first foray into live streaming after the game, so we really do appreciate the support. Our Yankees fans asking us about can Altuve go pick up his son, Aroldis Chapman?
At least the Yankees fans got a good sense of humor.
I love it, man. You know what? And we've got a few Yankees fans that are coming to our chat on our channel, and they have a really good sense of humor about it. and aren't talking all this BS about you know what,
Yeah.
And so that's really, really, really it's really awesome.
Yeah. Just talking
It's
baseball, man.
yeah, man. Let's do that. And you know what? What's been nice this postseason is there hasn't been a single mention of
Mm,
anything of you
yeah.
know what.
Yeah.
There
If you
hasn't been a
know,
single mention of when last year it was literally every broadcast we had to hear that crap brought up. And this year I got to commend TBS because they haven't brought up that stuff once. So
they haven't.
kudos to them. Really nice to get away. SI couldn't help themselves today. SI couldn't help themselves.
Of
They
course
go
not.
out with the Jeff Luno article. The
Yeah.
Exile Astro or whatever the headline was
Yeah.
for them. They couldn't help themselves. They couldn't, Astros are in the playoffs again. And so of course SI is going to go out with a clickbait article, that has to rehash sign stealing, has to rehash, Jeff Luno's, role and all of that, whatever SI
It
go
gets
F
clicks.
off.
That's the only reason they do it. It gets page views. But
Yeah.
the thing is, it doesn't get page views in Houston. Nobody wants to read that garbage. We've been
No.
beaten over the head with it forever, and a bunch of it's BS anyway. Just as far as some other teams were doing some things. So anyway, I'm just let's move on. That was in 20. I mean, how long ago is that? 5 years ago. Let's just talk about what's going on the field. But yeah, of course, SI is going to put that now. They want some page views, so whatever. We're not clicking on it in Houston. I'll tell you that.
No, and honestly, I didn't even realize SI is still a thing. If I'm being completely honest about it, I didn't
Just
realize.
somebody's initials now. I don't know.
Yeah. I have no idea what that. If you and Okay, we're joking about it, but literally, if you asked, let's say, a 19-year-old what SI stood for, do they
No,
know?
no,
No, no one knows. And
no. They're gonna think
anyone
it's a
that's
dance
over the
on
age of
TikTok.
40 who knows, the only reason they know is because of the swimsuit issue. So
Yeah,
SI, go F yourself. That's what I say about it. Um, let's see. What's Heather say? Will Astros have home field? Absolutely. Absolutely.
if
They
they
will.
advance,
Yeah,
yeah.
if they advance, they would have home field advantage in the ALCS. They have the best record in the AL, so they have home field advantage, or would have home field advantage all the way up to the World Series, should they make it, and then it would just
Depends on
depend
who they're
on who
playing.
makes it. Yeah.
Yeah, depends on who
Um,
they're facing. And we go to the 7-game series, Heather, which great for Astros fans because if we do get to the ALCS, more games, more opportunities to get some tickets and watch some Astros in the ALCS if they make it.
we'll take a few more questions here before we go. And we've been going for over an hour here, but Andrew wants to know: did you guys enjoy Carlos on the commentary? He means Carlos Correa. What did you think about Carlos on the commentary?
I only got to see him interviewing Jeremy Pena because we quickly jumped on here and started the live stream right after the game. Um, the only disappointing part of him being one of the guys interviewing Jeremy Pena was still so loud in Minute Maid Park that Jeremy was having trouble hearing the questions.
Mhm.
So, and we saw that with the pitch comm today too, but I digress. It was so loud in Minute Maid, guys were having trouble hearing the pitches. And during the broadcast, Pena couldn't really hear him. But I think it's kind of cool. And it's a smart move by Carlos, who's trying to make a bunch of money in free agency to get his face out there. Hey, remember me? Pay me $35 million a year for 10 years. I'm Carlos. So I can't blame him for trying.
Yeah, and our Lee, our Yankee fan says, one request: can y'all stop treating us like a bitch for 5 minutes? I look, the Astros will if they advance and the Yankees advance, they will respectfully bounce you from the ALCS. There will not be any bitch made. Okay, so it's there. Everyone will be respectful about it. And hey, Lee, let's just agree on this: as an Astros fan to a Yankee fan, we can all agree that Dodgers fans are the worst.
Yes, that is something that we can agree on together, where we can get on the same page. And look, all BS aside, Yankees are a good baseball team. We respect them as a
Yeah.
baseball team, and whatever happens, it could go either way. It's baseball. Two good teams, anything can happen. So if it is the Yankees, we're lucky enough to get past Seattle, then buckle up. It's going to be a long, difficult series that I hope our boys come out on top. But you never know. That's why you play the games.
Think about the season that the Yankees had, and then think about that awful month that they endured, which was August. Is that right? I forget what month that was.
It was after the All-Star break they started scuffling.
Yeah, they had that awful month and still finished at 99 games, 99 wins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that just goes to show you the season that the Yankees had, and they really, righted the ship towards the end of the season. I don't know
saw what Garrett Cole did in game 1. Like, Garrett Cole can do that. So you never know.
Yeah, no, true. And JB has a different point of view. Hey, respect your opinion, JB. So you do you, but someone says, can we talk about Cashman? No, I'm talking about Cashman. Astros podcast. We'll talk about Brian Cashman. Care what that guy does. I hope he's on forever. I hope Brian Cashman's running the thing forever. Quite frankly. Okay. Let's. I know we're trying to wrap up here, but let me ask you this. James Click. We've talked a lot about James Click on this channel, leading up to the postseason. You've got, Trey Mancini really, hasn't done anything. Will Smith got left off the roster. Christian Vasquez, great. I mean, the best backup catcher you could, ask for in this situation. I mean, he's one of the best catchers in the AL, and he's your backup catcher. So that's an amazing acquisition. So you have incredible insurance, but he's not anyone who's contributing to the product right now.
Phil Maton busted his hand up. That's a Click guy. He was good last year, but wasn't great this year, and then he does something stupid right before the postseason.
Montero was a guy
that was a good pickup
that you were able to pick up in the deadline trade last year. Baez was a guy who didn't really work out for you. Odorizzi didn't really work out for you. He's not on this roster anymore. There's been some reports about tension with the James Click and Jim Crane. What do you think the Astros have to do in this postseason for James Click to retain his position at GM?
I honestly don't know if it matters. Like, if they win it all, I could still see if Jim Crane is that's not his cup of tea. He knows anybody's going to want to take this job. So it's going to be up to Jim Crane. It's really his organization. And we've read that he felt a little ill-informed and deceived by the scandal, and that he was a much more hands-off owner then. But after that happened, he changed and said, like, man, I can't have something happen like this again. I got to be a little more hands-on. So if he's not getting along with Click day to day and he doesn't like his moves, he's going to be out of here. And I think it's interesting. Joe Espada now is interviewed for 2 different manager jobs.
Right.
So, cause it's Click and it's Dusty. We're not really sure about. And would Espada, if he really thought this was going to be his job, would he be interviewing? Probably, because it's good experience to go interview and get in front of other teams. So probably, but I don't know. That's a bad sign for them coming back. I'm not saying it's a bad sign for the Astros because they know what they're doing, but they also lost their assistant GM to the Giants the other day.
Right.
So, there's a lot of guys leaving. So, if you lose your assistant GM and your GM after you win a World Series, has anything like that ever happened? I can't think of it.
Well, and look at what the Orioles have been able to do, who are also, they're building what they're building with Jeff Lunel guys as well. And so you're having a lot of these guys who helped build this juggernaut team that's been, a mammoth team to go up against in the AL. And you're seeing attrition from a lot of these key guys that helped build it. But there's a really good question here that we had, which was, do they bring? It's Warren. Warren says, do Click and Dusty's contract get renewed if they win the World Series? I think that is kind of the wild card here, right? Because how do you let go Dusty after he takes, we're using his scenario, so not jinxing anything, guys, but we're using his scenario. He's saying if they
Yes.
if they win the World Series, if they win the World Series this year, then in theory, that would be 2 consecutive World Series, which is incredible in and of itself. That's so rare that you get back-to-back World Series. But if they actually like finish the deal, like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess you could make the argument that you could convince Dusty to retire because he's going out on top. Maybe you even give him some sort of, position.
Job.
Yeah. Some sort of position in the organization where he's, kind of an ambassador or, just a guy that's, around the team still as a reward for thank you for, steadying the ship after the scandal. And after the scandal was revealed in 2019. So thank you for riding the ship. I appreciate, everything that you brought. But yeah, you're right. Espada sitting there, and this will be his second time interviewing with another team. You don't want to lose a guy who's, from all intents and purposes, coveted and thought very highly of in the organization.
But they let Brent Strom just go. See ya.
But the difference was Brent Strom was on the back end of his career.
Yeah, that's true. Dusty's on the back end. If we look at him, as far as Click, he's up and coming. Well, I mean, really, he should be in his prime if he's leading this Astros team as a GM with, going to all these playoffs. Jim Crane is hard to handicap,
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's hard to really know what's going on with him. But I would like to bring up your point, Brandon, where if he did want to bring back Click, but he didn't want to bring back Dusty, then he's probably not going to do that deal with Click now and leave Dusty out there hanging in the wind. You know what I mean? Like that's not a good look. So my point being, or really it's your point, like it's best for him not to say anything if he does want to bring one guy back and not the other, because that speaks volumes if you go sign one of these guys for next year and you don't with the other guy. And then every article is about that. And then your players before playoff games are answering questions about, oh, well, we see Click got a new deal. Do you think that means Dusty's not coming back or vice versa? He doesn't want to deal with that. And that's smart business. Like, we'll handle that after the season.
Yeah. Somebody says Dusty doesn't need to work. Well, of course Dusty doesn't need to work. He's doing this because he wants to. Absolutely. You know what? I think this one's the best question to end the broadcast on for the night, because we've gone way long. Warren wants to know, on behalf of his wife, is Granado as hot in real life as he is on YouTube? Yeah, baby. He is smoking hot.
He has to cool off with those Coors Lights. He gets too hot, so he's just got to pour them on his head. Silver bullet, baby.
It's nonstop hotness with John Granado in the room. I can't lie at all. Hey, guys, I want to appreciate everybody tuning into the broadcast for our second ever live stream on YouTube for Sports Map Houston for Game 2 of the ALDS. We will be back on Game 3 of the ALDS post-game show as well. We appreciate everybody tuning in right here. Talk to you later, guys.